Hello my friends, HM here. Now in this video we are going to see how new chips from Nvidia are going to revolutionize drone warfare in the Ukraine-Russian war, and how it only benefits Ukraine but not Russia, because only Ukraine can get these chips. And there are really no other good suppliers for these chips that will make drones way more deadly and way more effective by increasing the percentage of successful hits by these drones compared to drones that doesn't have these AI chips built in. Now, if you think that sounds interesting, you should keep watching. The thing that prompted me to make this video here on war drones in Ukraine that uses AI chips was this video here that was posted on YouTube by Nvidia, by Jensen, their CEO. And for those who don't know it, Nvidia is the world's largest producer of chips for AI, both for inference AI and for training AI in large data centers. And they also produce both chips for data centers, but also for mobility. This thing here he presented in this video is for mobility users, such as war drones or automobiles with driver assist systems or self-driving systems, and also robots, humanoid robots that are going to be big very soon. They all need smaller AI chips that can run with a lower power consumption and a smaller form factor than the chips that you can put in data centers where you have lots of power and also lots of space. So these chips are the ones that will revolutionize warfare in Ukraine, and it's going to happen in 2025. I'm pretty sure of that, in a very big way. And it's going to be bad for Russia, seriously bad. They don't cost a lot. I have investigated that, and I've also investigated all the chips basically that are available for this in the world, both from China, from Nvidia, and from competitors to Nvidia. But Nvidia has the best chips, and that's why Nvidia has now become one of the most valuable companies in the world, because they really have the best chips for AI, far better than the competition. But let's dig into it. Now, before we move on, don't forget to support my channel by clicking the like button here, or by donating some money, or by commenting in the comment section. It all helps with the algorithm, and it helps me making these videos. So with that out of the way, let's get to it. Let's start by showing a picture of what we are talking about here in this video. Well, these are FPV drones, and they look like this. They weigh about 5 kilo. They'll have a rocket-propelled grenade underneath that weigh about 2 kilo. Then on top here, it's not shown here, but you put a battery on it. You put a smaller battery if you know you have to hit a thing that's not far away, and you put a larger battery on it if you need to hit something that's longer away. And you also put the grenade on just before you send it off to hit something. That grenade can either be an armor-piercing grenade that can destroy a tank or armored fighting vehicles or an artillery system, or it can be a blast fragmentation bomb that is used to kill soft targets like vehicles that are not armored or people. But otherwise, this is what we are talking about, and it's about a 5 kilo thing, and you can also have different kinds of cameras on it. Let me show you what kind of drones you can make with this, and how much they cost, and what kind of other specifications they have. I'm famous for my Excel spreadsheets on this channel here, because I can do more if I present stuff in an Excel spreadsheet. I can do some calculations, I can get far better information. Plus you can download this spreadsheet by a link below the video, so you can get all the sources I've used in my video to obtain my data, and basically for free of charge use all the things I've found out in these Excel spreadsheets that just keeps getting better the longer I make videos here on YouTube, because it's the same spreadsheet I keep updating with new data and more things to talk about. So what do I have here? I have a spreadsheet where I have gathered all kind of key information about weapons that are important for warfare, all types of weapons, and of course I also have short-range drone weapons that are used, and we just saw a picture of. They are normally called FPV drones, or first-person viewer drones, because the cameras on the drone are radio transmitting the video signal back to a Google that you put on your head, and then you can see what the drone see when you fly it out, and that's how you control the drone. That's why they're called this FPV drones. And they are about those 5 kilos that I've talked about. 2 kilo for battery, 2 kilo for warhead. Here we can see the warhead is 2 kilo. When the war started in Ukraine, nobody used these drones, but Ukraine started to use these drones pretty quickly. They just bought DJI drones and then converted them to war drones. And now they are dedicated production for war drones. They don't buy them from DJI anymore. And also Russia was a little slow to use this. For half a year they didn't use any of these drones, but now they're using drones. So both parties, both Ukraine and Russia, are using drones in a very large number now. In 2025, we can safely estimate that Ukraine will use 1.5 million of these drones. Russia will probably use 1 million, probably more. It will depend, of course, on supplies, how you can get the batteries and the chips and so forth for making these drones. Fortunately, many of the most important chips for this stuff is produced in the West, or more specifically in Taiwan. But China are producing most of the batteries and also electric motors and stuff. So we are trying to catch up here in the West to try to secure our own supply chains for making these drones that will basically make or break the war for either Ukraine or Russia. And I'll come back to that, how many they're killing. They're killing an enormous amount of people, and they've become the primary killer of people and material. It's no longer artillery that used to be the king of all weapons in war. Now it's drones, and it's in particular these small drones here that have completely changed how we do war on the front lines. But what I want to say here is I have listed 5 different types of drones. The first one here is an FPV drone with a blast fragmentation warhead that kills soft targets like unarmored vehicles and people. That's the lowest cost drone you can imagine. It only costs $620. If you click anything at a cell here in my table, you will see I have composed that of 3 different elements that you can find elsewhere in this table. It's a cost of the drone itself, then it's a cost of the warhead. I can remember that the warhead is a blast fragmentation warhead is like $100. The drone itself without battery or warhead is $400, and then you have a $120 battery that you also need to strap on. And how do I know the battery cost? Well, because I have made here a war drone battery calculator for a 5 kilo drone where I have basically all the specific explained here, and I also have sources for these things. Some of these things I don't have sources for because they can vary depending on who's supplying the battery. For instance, I have at 200 watt hours per kilo here. If you think it would be relevant to change that a little bit because you are using another battery, just change this number and you will get everything in this spreadsheet calculated according to what you put in yourself. But let's get back to these drones. So this one is very cheap, and that's also why they are so deadly in this war. You can make millions of them without spending a lot of money. Here, for instance, the cost to make 1 million of these blast fragmentation drones, that's only $620 million. If you made 10 million of them, nobody are making that many, then it would be $6 billion. Not really a whole lot. Then we'll have another drone that's also very much used with another warhead. That would be an armor-piercing warhead. Such a warhead will cost you $400 typically, so it's more expensive than a blast fragmentation warhead that only costs $100. So it will raise the price here by $300 to almost $1,000 for this drone. But now it can also destroy a tank. So you can use a $1,000 or $900 weapon to destroy a $10 million tank or $10 million armored personnel carrier or artillery system. That's a pretty good trade-off. If you put an AI chip on them, I have found the optimal chips that Nvidia are producing and what that costs, that can get the job done here, and that has the power consumption and also the low weight to fit on one of these drones. Now that will cost about $900 for that chip, so the price will increase to almost $2,000 now for the drone. But actually the cost of killing with this drone will drop because it's far better at killing. Let me go to it right here. I have many more informations in this spreadsheet. Let me show you here. For this drone here, I have found out how many of these drones, for conventional drones that don't have AI chips on them, how often do they actually hit something. It's actually only 20% of them that hit something. 80% of them are lost due to electronic warfare because they run out of battery and just drop dead, or they are shot down, or they simply fail to hit their target. But most of them are simply lost because they lose the radio signal, or the electronic warfare shows them a GPS signal that's not the real one, and then it flies in a completely different direction and just run out of battery, and then it doesn't do anything. So only 20% are actually hitting something. If you put an AI chip in it, it could hit 60%, so 3 times more hits will be successful with an AI chip. Why is that? Because an AI chip can be used to replace the GPS navigator. You can just use the AI chip to look down on the earth and then know from the map, okay, I'm here, there's this picture below me, then I know the position of where I am, instead of using a satellite system that can be jammed. You cannot jam the picture that the drone takes of the ground below it, and that can be converted to a GPS location number by using AI. Another thing AI can do is that instead of having a drone operator, I've told you about the operator needs to put some goggles on and then control the drone remotely because he can see what the drone sees. Well, the AI can see, instead of using an operator, the AI can see what's going on. The AI will know when it sees a soldier running around and, okay, let's fly down there and kill that soldier. The AI can see if there is a tank and it wants to fly down there and destroy that tank. It can identify what's down on the ground, and it can do it without getting tired. It's not a human, so it can do it non-stop, 24/7. It never gets tired, it doesn't make errors, so it'll be far more successful at hitting the targets, but also because it cannot be jammed with electronic warfare. It doesn't need a radio signal to the drone. All you do here is that the instructor is simply instructing the drones to fly out and scan an area for targets, and if it doesn't find any targets, it will fly back again to recharge, and then it will be sent out again, trying to find something that it can hit. That's how it will operate. And here you can see when you can increase the hit rate by 3 times, from 20% to 60%, well, then you will have 900,000 hits if you are producing 1.5 million drones, which is certainly expected by Ukraine for 2025. So 900,000 times it will actually hit and destroy something, either people or material. And the same number of drones without that AI chip can only hit 300,000 targets. Now, if you convert that into how many dead people or crippled Russian soldiers is that? Well, if we assume, which is a reasonable assumption, that each of these hits result in half a dead or crippled person, then we have that the conventional drones without AI chip, they will kill or cripple 150,000 Russians for 2025. But if you enable them all with AI chips, they will kill or cripple 450,000 Russians. That means Russia will lose the war. Now, what else can we see in these numbers here I've calculated? Well, we can see the cost of making the drones. If you make the drone with an AI chip, yes, that AI chip will increase the price of the drone by $900. And that will mean that if you have to make 1.5 million, you'll have to pay $2.3 billion for this. That's very low amount, actually. Ukraine can afford that. They have gotten like $400 billion, both in military aid and financial aid, since the war started. So this is just a very small amount of money. And if they don't use that AI chip, well, it will be $1.4 billion. Well, how much does it actually cost to hit something? US dollars per hit? Well, then we can see it's actually cheaper to hit something with the AI drone than with drones that are not enabled with AI. It costs $4,600 to make a hit with a non-AI enabled drone, and only $3,000 to hit something with an AI drone. So looking aside from the fact that you can inflict massively more damage on Russia, well, you can also do it with less cost per kill using these AI-enabled drones. And if we convert that the same calculation for how many dollars does it cost to kill or cripple a Russian soldier, well, without the AI it will cost about $9,000, but with AI it will cost about $6,000 to kill or cripple a Russian soldier. That's very cheap because they're definitely worth more than that, the lives of these soldiers. I don't know the value of a person in Russia. I know they are not as rich as we are here in the West, but I still think that the total value over the lifespan, how much money can they make over their entire life? Well, it would probably be in the order of $400,000 or something, even in Russia, and maybe $1 million in the West. So if you can kill or cripple such a person for such a small amount, well, that's very cheap. I know it's a little macabre to calculate it like this, but you have to do it like this because wars are won by being efficient, using the resources that you have. They're not unlimited, so you have to use the most effective weapons. And to calculate the economics of killing, that's one way you do that. War drones like this are by far the cheapest weapon to kill something. The next best weapon would be heavy artillery, and then everything else will cost more per person you kill or per piece of equipment you destroy. But of course, these weapons are all very short-range weapons, and they can only be used for that situation. There are many other situations in war where you need far longer range. But funny thing is, these AI control systems that can both navigate using AI without any GPS and also find and home in on their targets without using any operator, they can also be used for much longer range weapons of any size in this war. But I'm just focusing in this video on the smaller drones because they are far more numerous and they kill many more people and equipment. There are also other benefits of using these AI drones instead of drones without AI, and that is the number of operators you need to operate such a system. Now, with conventional drones, I've calculated if each operator on average just launch one drone per day, that would be 365 per year, then Ukraine would need 4,100 operators to launch 1.5 million drones. That's actually less than I expected, and it's quite reasonable, these numbers. You can change them if you think they're any different. But if you have an AI system where you don't need to look in any Googles and actually control the drone operator will just line up a lot of drones with the right battery on it and the right warhead on it, and then they will get a message from a central command that now they have to send out like 10 drones in that area because another surveillance drone has found out that there are troop movements in that area. So go in there, send out 10 drones with, let's say, blast fragmentation warheads, and then the drone will fly to that area by itself and locate the targets and kill the targets by itself. The drone operator doesn't need to look for each and every drone into these Googles. Won't be needed at all. And that means the same drone operator can likely send out almost 4,000 drones per year instead of like 400 drones per year. So that means only 400, 500 drone operators could actually launch 1.5 million drones in 1 year. So you save a lot of resources here. People can be used for other stuff by, you could say, automating this drone warfare. What other things, when we click this cells, I have some notes. I've mentioned some advantages, disadvantages. There will be areas where Russia has electronic warfare that is so effective that no drones can go in there at all. They will all crash and not hit their targets. These areas can be targeted by this AI-enabled drones, which is of course a huge benefit, that it's not a black zone that we cannot attack. No, with this weapon it opens up again that zone for attack. And of course, if Russia has put so much electronic warfare up so that no radio-controlled drone can actually penetrate it, that's because they're protecting some important targets that are there. What else have I said? If you only want to target, say, a fixed position with a drone, then you don't need an expensive chip. I've said here in this example that we are using a specific chip, I'll come back to it shortly, from Nvidia that costs $900, but there are other chips that are smaller and less pricey. The one that Jensen presented that I talked about in the beginning of the video, it's $250 for the developer kit if you just buy one of them, and you can buy them everywhere now from Amazon and so forth. If you bulk buy them in thousands in a time, you can get them for $200. That will mean the drone will be cheaper. And what can that chip do? Well, it cannot home in. It's not powerful enough to home in by itself on a target. But what if you have a fixed target, you know exactly where it's supposed to hit and destroy? Then you just use AI navigation, which doesn't require a very advanced chip, and then you use that instead. You can make it even cheaper. Now, the third thing I mentioned in this note is that this technology can be used for small drones or large drones, everything. So you can use it generally. That's a benefit, but I've already said that. And then the fourth thing is actually a disadvantage about putting an AI chip on the drone. The specific AI chip that I know can get the job done, both with homing in and also navigation, it uses 40 watt and it's about 500 grams. And that means the drone will be more heavy, and that means the range will be reduced. But I calculated how much power a drone that is 5 kilo, how much that will use. I calculated it up here. If we assume here that a drone drains its battery in 12 minutes, and it has a battery that has 200 watt hours per kilo, and it has a 2 kilo battery, then we know it has 400 watt hours in that battery. And that means if it's drained in 12 minutes, it can actually deliver 2000 watt to that drone. That's a lot of power. and it's enough to fly the drone for at least 100 kilometers per hour for 12 minutes. Let me show you how much it can move it around. I have in this table, I have these drones. I'm showing it has a range of 10 kilometers. That's the radius. It can fly out 10 kilometers and it can also get back again if it doesn't find a target to be refueled on the battery, because then you shouldn't just waste it. And I have calculated here it only takes 6 minutes to fly 10 kilometers at 100 kilometers per hour. So, but I just showed you that this drone actually has 12 minutes of flight time in it, so it can also get back again. But my point here is to show that if you put an AI chip in it, then you will increase the weight by 500 grams. That's about 10% weight increase. That will also increase the power that you need to draw from the battery. Instead of drawing 2000 watt, you might need to draw 2200 watt to accommodate for the extra weight of the drone. Plus there's a 40 watt power consumption by the AI chip. So that will decrease the radius of this drone to 9 kilometers instead of 10 kilometers. I also have here in this table, I'm showing you some other types of drones that you can have here. Something that Ukraine has used are thermal cameras that can see at night, because in the beginning they didn't use thermal cameras on the drones, but that meant that at nighttime the drones couldn't be used because they couldn't see anything. But with a thermal camera they can also be used at night. And again, what does that do to the price of the drone? Well, if you go from a drone that doesn't have a thermal camera on it, then it's $920. Then you add a thermal camera on it. It's actually very expensive. It's a $1,000 thing for something that's good enough for a drone. And so it will more than double in price. And also the ultimate drone, of course, will be a drone that has both a thermal camera and an AI chip on board. So it can be operated day or night, and also it can be operated without a drone operator actually looking in some Googles and controlling the drone. It just controls itself. It can navigate completely without any radio communication to either navigation satellites or drone operator. That's the perfect weapon, but it has a little drawback. That is, it's even more heavy, because now it needs a thermal camera plus an AI chip, and then the range will drop to 8 kilometers in radius. I have much more information in this table, and as I said, you can just download it and look for yourself, but my video will be too long if I talk about everything I found out. What I want to finish off with is to show you these AI chips that Nvidia has, various possibilities, and also the competition. What can Russia use and what can't they use? And that's another spreadsheet. Let me open that up. So this is a spreadsheet that has all the AI stuff that I have gathered basically over the past 2 years, but it's the first time I will publish it on my channel here on YouTube. And we only use one of these sheets in this enormous spreadsheet. And that sheet is this one here that has all the key chips that are used for AI globally. And specifically today we're interested in just looking at chips for AI inference in mobile devices such as military drones, automobiles, and also humanoid robots that need a low power consumption and also a small form factor to fit into these mobile devices. And the chip here that Jensen presented in the video I showed you in the beginning of my video here is this one. It's called Nvidia Jetson Orin 8GB Nano Super. That chip has a power consumption of 25 watt, and it can perform 67 teraflops per second. And a teraflop is 1,000 billion operations per second. That's crazy. So it's 67 trillion operations per second it can perform. And the previous chip, that's actually exactly the same hardware, but it just had some software that wasn't as great. It could only do 40 teraflops. And it was introduced 2 years ago. But I still think that this chip is not powerful enough to power drones for war, because it won't be able to do the identification of targets all by itself. It simply doesn't have enough memory. It has 8 gigabytes of memory, which will only compare to a vision model with 1.3 billion parameters. Now, the models in AI that can actually power a war drone would be more comparable to what Tesla is using in their automobiles. And if you look at, and they're also here, Tesla's hardware free, that would be their oldest chip for AI in their self-driving cars. It has 32 gigabytes. It actually has less computational power. It's 37 teraflops, but it has much more memory, so it can store a larger and more complex vision-based model of 1.3 billion parameters. If you want to buy an Nvidia chip that is comparable to what Tesla's hardware free has, and that should definitely be able to do everything that's needed for a war drone, then you need to pick this one here I have here, Jetson Orin AGX 32 gigabytes, so exactly the same size to store the parameters of the AI model as Tesla's hardware-free software. So 1.3 billion parameters for these models you can fit into this chip. And here we can see it costs $900, and it's also much better actually than the Tesla's hardware-free, but Tesla's hardware-free is an older chip. It came out in 2019, and this one Nvidia has is a chip from 2022, and each year they get better, so it should be expected that it can perform better. It has 200 of these teraflops, so that's how that chip is. One question we could ask is, well, can Russia not just do the same thing as Ukraine, and then they will also be able to kill many more Ukrainians? Well, Russia cannot buy this chip from Nvidia, but there are some chips that they might be able to get their hands on. That is two here from China, and I have two chips mentioned down here in this table. I couldn't find so much information about it. They don't inform as much about them as are for chips made outside of China. One thing I could find out is that they are produced on a process node. That's the technology level of how small you can compress the transistors on these chips. And this technology, it's an older node than the one used by Nvidia, the 16 nanometer here, whereas the Nvidia chips, they're using some more advanced stuff. So what I would expect is that the Chinese chips are using more power, and they're also bigger and bulkier than Nvidia's chips. But in principle, you could do the same here with the Chinese chips for this job as you could with the Nvidia's. But then there's another factor, that is a lot of Western developers are doing AI stuff, and Russia, if they should do this themselves, well, they certainly don't have as many top-level developers as are in United States and Europe and also Ukraine for this. So I would say that Ukraine is in a better position to either do it themselves or more likely to find a Western company that are doing the hard part, the software, the AI models of these drones that are needed. I would also say that currently in Ukraine, you haven't seen much use of AI-powered drones because they're simply not ready yet. But I think they will be ready next year in a big time. That will be 2025. Because these chips here from Nvidia has actually been out in production since the end of 2022. And so they have had some times to use these chips and actually get the models up and train them on data. And the war also has been going on for a long time now. They can use Ukraine as a perfect, you could say, field for gathering data that they can use for training these AI models that are needed for this stuff here to actually work. I'll say, if you are interested in knowing much more about these chips and stuff, you can read it here for yourself in this table that you are free to download. But otherwise, I think I'll end my video here. I hope you get subscribed and that you like it, and also maybe make a donation. And then I only have to say that wish you a great life in freedom and democracy. Goodbye.